I had one friend and we were talking about this one particular individual. They were looking for someone who had, a significant amount of money. And, and my kind of comment was, look, if you find someone who you can build a life with, that will make you as a couple better.
Yeah.
Because you're building something together.
Yeah.
Versus kind of being an add-on.
Yeah.
Because a lot of individuals who have a lot of money, if they meet someone else and they come into their life, but they've already made all their wealth, they've already done all these accomplishments, they've already done all these things. Well, then this new person comes in and they're not really part of those accomplishments. They're just kind of another add-on. And as a result, that doesn't really make the bond very
totally.
Or maybe not. I don't know. I don't know what goes on from that point or where the relationship starts and, how far it goes. But my recommendation has been to several women is to find someone who you can build something together with, because then you have, that's really where your bond is a lot stronger in that regard.
Yeah.
So that's always been my recommendation.
I think that's a great recommendation. I had a deep journey of like, love isn't enough. You have to be compatible. So like really looking into like, would I even be this person's friend? Like, do we have some things in common? Is our communication, on a similar level? Are the things that are important to them, do they even matter to me? Do we want kids? Do we want, like, where, like, I had to just, like, in my partnership and my marriage, like, there was just so many layers of things that we just didn't really get along on, and those things mattered at the end. Like, I feel like the dating process made me realize I'm not looking for someone to fill a role. Like, I'm looking for a partner and a human being, and the context of all of them. I had like a list for a while, and it's just interesting to me, like, there were things that I wanted that were like, I want him to make a certain amount of money. I want him to whatever. And those things all kind of like dissolved. And I started looking for a human.
Well, what's interesting about some of the, there's I don't remember if it was a study or where it originally came from, but, it'll be the kind of thing where if you ask someone, hey, what kind of people do you like? And they'll have a list.
Yeah.
I want someone who votes like this and is like this and like this and like this. And you go, okay, well, tell me about your closest 3 friends.
Yeah. And
what it showed was that people generally were friends and closer with people that they saw with more frequency. It'd be like, oh, well, I work with so-and-so, my neighbor is so-and-so, and then I have this workout class with this other individual. And that would be how they'd know these individuals. With a partner, I feel like there's the majors. Kids, voting in today's world, I feel like things are pretty hot topic for a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I know some married couples who are pretty vote pretty completely opposite, and
they've somehow found some common ground.
They seem as in love as possible.
Yeah.
Some of the individuals I'm mentioning, like I can think they just look absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I think the kids one is a massive one. That's a pretty big one. And I've known actually a couple divorces as a result of changing of minds on the kids.
Yeah.
And and since we're, on the dad topic, I just found that, the addition of kids to my life was just such a massive thing.
Yeah.
It was in such a great way.
I love that. I feel like I had a hard time finding men when I was dating that knew that they wanted kids. And we were over 30 at that point. I'm like, if you don't know yet, like what's gonna...
Yeah, I always knew I wanted him. I didn't know how much it was going to change me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That was the biggest difference. And, because they come out, and even after they come out, you think and you don't, and you're constantly learning new things. It's constant new efforts and learning. Let's go back to the dating stuff. I won't talk about the kids too much, but I love it. If we can talk about it, are you okay talking about your dad?
Yeah, totally.
So, you want me to let you start?
Sure.
Okay.
Just go straight in.
Well, I could ask.
Where should we start?
I was going to say, so your father passed recently.
My dad, he passed during COVID.
I'm sorry.
2021. Thank you. It was horrible.
I believe it was.
Yeah.
And how was his role for you when you're growing up?
So I'm one of 5. So my dad had a lot of children. I was like specifically like closer with him, I think, than the rest of the kids in my family. I was really good at sports, and he like was really excited about that. So we had something that we really shared. And He was an entrepreneur. I was always really drawn to that. I'm an entrepreneur now. I just loved learning. I just loved learning from him. I feel like he had like a struggle and some darkness. Part of that I think is just due to the times. But he started getting sick in like early 2020, and we didn't know what was going on. And then in 2021, he found out that he had cancer, and he died like 18 days after they gave him the diagnosis. It was really quick.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My mom was 6 weeks after diagnosis.
Yeah. I know you told me that. That's crazy. It's really fast. Yeah.
It's really awful.
Yeah.
And what lessons did he impart lessons to you when you were little? And how were those?
My favorite lesson was the best thing that you can do is work for yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I started my own company.
Great.
And is the best thing. It is the best thing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. I just feel like he was kind of rebellious in that. Like, I can't work for other people. He couldn't work under other people. He started his own company. It was great. And he was very creative in figuring things out. Like, he was very much self-taught, which has made me like absolutely fearless with learning my craft. I teach myself new things all the time, and he was always doing that. And
since we're going into this, tell us about your business. So Jessica is also our videographer, and she's done some of the recordings that we have done.
Okay. So I've had a production company for about 8 years now, and I started before that, and it was like a time when there weren't very many women doing this stuff. And so I had some amazing mentors. I started out kind of on the photography side, and then I moved to LA and just really dove in and like threw myself into the culture, did a lot of stuff for free, was really scrappy in the beginning, like trying to learn from just like showing up and volunteering.
You still do stuff for free.
I still do stuff for free.
Yeah, I've got ideas. I'm like, hey, Jessica, I want to do this commercial. You're like, we're going to shoot this. This is so great.
Let's do it. Yeah.
In fact, we have to do those.
Yeah, we have to.
You do? Okay.
Yeah,
we'll come back to that.
We'll do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been like 8 or 9 years now where I've had like my company, and it's turned into a lot of podcasts and a lot of video, and like I create ads for companies, but it's I'm saying production, but it's like production and marketing.
And how has AI changed it, or is it just kind of another avenue?
Has AI changed it?
Yeah.
I use AI as a tool. I think it's incredible.
So it's good. So it's as a plus.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's helped so much with editing, and just, I mean, there's so many different ways of how I use it now. Yeah, awesome. I'm a fan.
Okay,
I'm not against it at all.
But I mean, like, so some people are concerned that it's going to take jobs. You see it as just fast lane.
No, I think it's pushed. Yeah, I think it's just made me able to do more of the stuff that I actually care about. Like, it's taken some of the stuff off my plate, and it's allowed me to be more creative. It's like definitely an assist. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
You show so much fear about it, so it's good to hear it's just actually made your business better.
Yeah, I think so, for sure.
Well, good.
Yeah. What else about dating? How did we get to AI?
You want to go back to dating?
How did we get to AI?
We can go back to dating if you want. I was since we're talking, I wanted to bring back to dads a little bit. So talk about your dad. The dating stuff. I mean, the same thing. Or my thoughts from before is just we want more dads.
Yeah.
We want more dads. We want to encourage more dadding, being engaged, being involved with your kids, and also getting the resources, I think, for it. So because we've been transitioning our content a little bit because, we interview these individuals who work in real estate. But what we found is that, if we're making content for dads, there's more, and that goes to what kind of world are we, the same thing I said in the intro, but where are we going as a country? I think that's a really big one for a lot of man talk. We read about, the fall of Rome and how did Rome fall, and it's also, how do we have more kids, and how do we bring back, people having more kids if there seems like there's this non-communication between like men and women. And I think that's something that kind of makes me, I don't know how bad it is or how much the media just makes it look bad. Part of me just looks.
I think it's bad.
Is it really bad?
I think it's really bad. I think it's really bad.
Yeah, there've been articles done by several major financial organizations about how there's supposed to be this what do they call it, the wave of the she economy, where there's supposed to be a massive wave of women who are single. and they look at them they're actually looking at them as a buyer demographic group where they want to market to that body of individuals as its own class of people they want to create marketing for.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah, I can too. Yeah. And, and when I look at that, there's an old Jerry Seinfeld quote. I saw Jerry Seinfeld on stage. This is in Santa Barbara years ago. And he said, people always say, don't settle. And he goes, I say settle. They settled for you. You might as well settle for them. And it's a joke, but I'm also kind of like, because you hear about these people where they have their lists and they have their kind of demands. And meanwhile, while they're holding out or they're making dating life difficult for themselves, they're getting older. And for me, I look, and I think about several individuals, including my own dad, and I go, where would my dad be if he didn't have my sister and I, and how would his life be? And my answer is probably not very good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he'd be fine, but would, the unknowns are just so, I don't have any idea.
Yeah.
And with people who I think, miss that window as a result of kind of having expectations that are not correct, or looking at social media, which creates this feeling of ineptitude in all of us. I mean, all of us who look at social media are like, well, these people are doing this, and this individual is doing this, and this person is this attractive, and it's not that way. You take off the makeup, you see how hard they had to work to do the thing, you had to do whatever, and it's just not really as I'll call it snap judgment. The snap judgment that we all see is not accurate. So with dating, I feel like that's the most damaging society that we can actually see.
Yeah.
I don't see it in a financial sense. I see it in like people not being happy with their status quo of dating.
Yeah. I think it's an issue with just any connection at all, intimacy and connection. I feel like we're in a place where like we're more connected than we've ever been with social media and everything. And we are the most disconnected from our own selves and each other.
How do we fix that?
I mean, I have my own opinions about it. Yeah. I've gone on this whole spiritual journey. I feel like the answer is right in front of us, though. And I could go deeper into that. But I believe we draw these experiences into our lives, and it's for our deepest healing.
How so? Let's go into that a little bit.
So my past relationships were always with partners that I felt like were very avoidant. That was like the thing that I was like, oh, he can't sit with me through any conversation. Like he's always trying to get away. And then my last one, like he did literally just end up like leaving without like even like saying goodbye. He just left. And I had to go like deep within myself and look at the areas where.
So you actually took some, because even as I'm hearing, because even as I'm hearing this, I'm like, wait a minute, you took responsibility for this person leaving you.
I did.
Which I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I had to look at what ended up happening was I started, turning the camera in, and I looked at all the times and the situations where I self-abandoned to please the other, which was over and over and over again. And so it would make sense that the partner that I attracted was avoidant because I had no sense of self. And I couldn't even I don't know. That was my journey.
No, I'm following. When we first brought it up, I wasn't quite sure where one of those. No, I understand. For me, it was not having fear that I was going to follow in certain steps of my parents.
Yeah.
Because I had so much trauma from my own childhood.
So I had to reparent myself in that so I could show up in a relationship as a whole person.
Yeah.
Instead of just being in the judgment of my partner's this way, I hate it, we never connect, he never listens. Like that was the script that was running in my mind, and I was so annoyed all the time, like so angry and miserable and hurt. But I didn't really even exist in the relationship because I didn't know myself enough to like even speak to what I needed. So I think that is the journey. So as much as we point the finger at, the person that we're with or whatever.
I've always had a very introspective view, and I've said this on the podcast before, but I got better, whether relationships, my first relationships to my wife ever ended, whether it was my fault or the other person's, I got better after each one of them. But it probably wasn't until I really started evaluating some of my own, you can't control other people.
Yeah.
That's the reality of it, what it comes down to. And you do have to make sure that you have your eyes open in regards to, who you're picking and why, which is what you're kind of like describing. My wife and I, we definitely had some certain things that we really connected on. We did. And some of those things I think really were very bonding for us to be able to say, hey, this is why we take our everything so seriously, and yeah, I wish I could have come to that conclusion in my 20s. I do. I look back and I go, I wish I could have. And I wish that had been something I could have done, but it really was. I just don't, I mean, I don't see how I could have had it happen without getting as many black eyes as I did.
Yeah.